I'm Laura Bonnell, and this is the Living with Cystic Fibrosis podcast coming to you from Detroit. Please subscribe and even rate and comment on our podcasts when it moves you. I learn something new with every podcast, and I'm always inspired by the people that are showcased here. We don't give medical advice. You need to connect with your doctor for that. I hope that this Living with Cystic Fibrosis podcast educates you and sparks some volunteering or advocacy. The CF community needs people like you. Thanks to our sponsors, Viatris and Vertex, for their support. This is our third podcast with Alan Klein, the Chief Development Officer with Healthwell. And as a reminder, Healthwell was paying about $25 million each year for CF copays and therapeutics, but because of the lack of funding from their corporate sponsors, they stopped helping existing patients and couldn't help new applicants with their CF bills. Healthwell closed their CF treatment fund to new and re-enrolling patients in 2023 with no word or idea when they would start up again. There was a lot of fear when this happened in August of 2023. The CF Vitamin and Supplement Fund did remain open, but there was also concern that that might have to shut down. With 40 to 45% of the CF population being helped by Healthwell, this was scary for many. The Bonnell Foundation was referring people to Healthwell if we couldn't meet parents' financial requests, so it was concerning for nonprofits like mine and many others who worried that we could be overwhelmed with financial requests because Healthwell no longer had funding. The reason for this podcast is because the program has reopened, but not everyone knows that it is back open to people with cystic fibrosis. Alan Klein, as you know, I was concerned about everybody becoming aware about the fact that Healthwell was again offering funding to the CF community. Not everyone heard about it. This is how I found out. Some people reached out and said they had never gotten a notice and they just on a whim applied and then realized that it was funded again. And then others did get a notice. So what happened?
Well, for all of the funds that we have open, and I should say we have two funds in the cystic fibrosis space. One is for cystic fibrosis treatments, which helps people with their out-of-pockets for drugs and medications. And one is for cystic fibrosis vitamins and supplements, which helps them for out-of-pockets for exactly that, their vitamins and supplements that they have to take to thrive and survive, of course. Only one of those funds were closed through the course of 2023, and that was partial closure for the year for the Cystic Fibrosis Treatments Fund. That ended up closing late summer and did not reopen until late December in 2023. It has been open since. We run about 90 different disease area funds, and all of our donors can pick and choose which funds they want to donate to. And we don't make the decision at Healthwell to open or close a fund because our donors actually, when they give us the money, we program those out in the specific disease areas that they select in order for that disease area fund to remain open to patients. So what happened for the Cystic Fibrosis Treatments Fund is that fund basically did not have enough money in 2023 to stay open and meet demand. So that's why the fund had to close at times in 2023. And then once we got a fresh set of donations, it reopened as soon as we got those.
My question is, why didn't everyone know it was open? Why didn't you reach out to nonprofits like mine and say, hey, we got the money back, and let everyone know that it was open again? And why didn't all the patients know that the fund was open again?
We have a system in place where people sign up, and it could be anybody, for what's called real-time fund alerts. It's on our website and takes about 1 second to sign up. On that will give you, and anybody that signs up, you can pick the fund that you're interested in, and you'll get either a text alert, a phone call, or an email alert whenever there's a change in fund status for that particular fund of what you're interested in at Healthwell. That's how most people find out. We don't do press releases or anything like that for a fund reopening And we don't call all, in this case, there would be tens of thousands of stakeholders. That's just not feasible for us to do that. We are here for the community for sure. It is not, we are here for Healthwell. We are here for the patient community for sure.
Yep.
And that is why I made a personal appearance myself at the Cystic Fibrosis Conference, because it was that important, because I needed to communicate as much as I could personally the messaging to people that it hurts me as much or as much as it can hurt me to not have that fund open. And you can bet your bottom dollar that I am putting as much pressure on our donors to help out as I can. And the fact that there is a need out there shows that the amount given to the organization just wasn't sufficient to meet the demands and not force people to make horrible choices between paying for their CF treatments and paying for food or for rent or for any of other life's basic necessities, which we're going to, I'm sure, talk about as well. And I can't thank you enough personally for this podcast and this voice to make sure that folks understand and know and are able to navigate as best as they can through all the stuff that they have to in order just to get their medication to be better at the end.
Yeah, and it's mutual. Absolutely. We're letting everybody know, again, it's really important to reinforce it, and it's exciting that it's available again.
100%. Yeah, thank you. And this platform is so unbelievably helpful and important, so thank you so much for doing that. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. And thank you. And so going forward, what is the primary cost for Healthwell when helping people with cystic fibrosis? Is it the cost of Trikafta, or is it many different things?
Yeah, so the average patient for medications for the treatments fund, it's approaching now, it used to be about $2,000, now it's closer to $3,000 out of pocket per year. The average patient on the vitamins and supplements side is a little over $600. So for sure, it's mostly on the drug side in terms of the burden to patients out of pocket, in terms of how much proportionally is needed from a Healthwell grant. We don't care what medication you're on for the treatments fund, as long as it is a medication that is either FDA approved or compendia listed for the treatment of cystic fibrosis. It'll be on our list of approved products that we show on our website, on our fund page. You can go through and scroll down, and I'm sure the products that you and the patient community are taking are all listed there. We are very inclusive when it comes to that, and just to make it easy, to show how much we want to say yes to everybody, over 98% of applicants get in to a Healthwell granted fund. Usually the only reason to not get in is because they are over income to qualify to be eligible. But 98% do get in. We try every which way to bend over backwards to say yes to everybody. The grant is for 12 months, so you can use it. It's not tied to the calendar. So if you get a grant today, which is the 12th of February, it's good until February 12th of 2025.
Okay.
It doesn't run out at the end of the calendar year.
And I know I wanted to ask you too, I think last year it was only, or maybe it's this year, only people can apply that are returning, or are you taking new applicants now as well?
New applicants as well, absolutely.
Fantastic.
So whenever a fund closes at Healthwell, the first few business days or maybe a week or two that it's reopened, we'll reopen it only to re-enrolling patients, only to promote continuity of care and give them first dibs before we open it up to everybody. That's only for a short period of time, and then we'll kind of broaden the opening a bit for people who are new grantees or newly diagnosed with CF.
Okay. And so you had 25 million before. How many more million did you need to get so you could reopen?
So in order for the fund to stay open at Healthwell throughout a calendar year, you're absolutely right. We need $25 million, which is interesting. When we first opened the fund in 2015, 2016 area, and even into 2017, the average need was about 15 million. So that has gone up significantly. So over 70% increase in what is needed. So that's not surprising. It's also a little bit of good news because people are living longer. with CF. So the treatments are good, but in order for that to actually work for patients, they have to be able to afford the treatments so they can live longer and live a normal and healthy life, or as healthy as you can get. So I think the donor community was continuing to use modeling that was, from 5, 6, 7 years ago, not taking into account that we need $25 million to keep the fund open. I think so far we have enough funding to last into the second quarter of this year, and we'll see how much longer after that the fund stays open. So to answer your question, we got a substantive set of donations, but because the fund was closed for a little while and because the beginning of the calendar year is always very busy, it has been unbelievably voluminous applications in that fund. So where we would average something like normally maybe upper 30s per day for people new enrollment, that it is way above that since we reopened. So we think it's going to come down to a steady state, so to get back to normal what we're seeing. But that being said, if you don't have a grant now and you're a patient or in the patient supporter system, or if your grant is about to expire for whatever reason at Healthwell, then do not delay. My recommendation would be to apply as soon as you can.
Does that mean you have the $25 million for the year, or?
We do not.
Oh, okay.
Not yet.
So Q2 is when you reassess?
No, Q2, I think we have enough money because it's been so busy. We got enough money where I thought we got a typical amount of money for the year. But because the fund was closed and because January is the busiest month of the calendar year for us, if we look and see right now how long that funding may last, it's only into Q2 right now. I'm hopeful that once the steady state part of the year starts to happen, that the amount of funding that we have currently will last a little bit longer. But until I see that data, I will make the assumption with you on this podcast that I can guarantee that the fund will last longer than at some point in Q2 right now, absent of future donations. And I should say we got as much donation or more than we have in previous years. But that being said, again, with the fund having been closed, there's a lot of people playing catch up. So that is impacting why I don't think it may last later than Q2.
Gotcha. And truly not trying to give you a hard time. I'm just asking. So does that mean you did not get a commitment for $25 million then?
We are less than that right now. Yes, it is a healthy amount. It is above and beyond what we've ever had, I believe, at least at this point, but still not enough.
Okay.
So absent of another donation, I can guarantee you the fund will not make it through the entirety of 24.
Okay. And we want Healthwell around. We want you to be there. So what can the CF community do, or how do you get donors' attention so that you can get more to keep this program going?
That is the fabulous question. So I think one of the things that can be done is there is certainly all of the donors that give us the major amounts of money are on the pharmaceutical spectrum, right? So there are pharmaceutical manufacturers in this space who have stakeholders in this space. That's typically who donate. I cannot reveal who they are by law. But that being said, any pharmaceutical manufacturer that you and your community wanted to say some nice things about the Healthwell Fund for, all of them for sure have heard about us and heard about our fund. But certainly, as long as others, including me, are kind of making our presence known to them, it is only going to be helpful. So I think that would be the number one thing. And I think if for example, if you're on a specific regimen of drugs, I think you probably are familiar with who the manufacturers are for those drugs, especially because these are drugs that are being taken chronically by patients. I would focus on those and say, hey, I'm one of your patients. Make sure you make life easier for me and my brothers and sisters out here by donating money to independent patient assistance program such as this one that is open for CF patients, because otherwise we will have problems affording your medication.
Because there are so many different drugs. It's not about one drug. It's about so many, all the CF drugs, correct?
Right. It is all about all the CF drugs. We happen to be the only foundation out there that is independent, that consistently has a fund open in the CF community and multiple funds in that space. So I think we are certainly preeminent stakeholders for sure. So I spend a lot of my time and effort, as well as a lot of our staff, to kind of make sure that we reach out to these folks and be where they're going to be, so we can stay in their faces. These are people who want to, generally do the right thing for patients. It's just a matter of how much money and how much budgeting they throw at this particular issue, for sure. Because for folks who are on government insurance, for example, they can't help them directly. The only place they can get assistance, financial assistance, once Medicare pays, is through an independent foundation such as Healthwell. Those who are on private insurance, they still have out-of-pocket copay obligations even after they have the private insurance pays and the manufacturer coupons or copays might pay that they can't afford. We'll happily pay those on behalf of those patients as well. So it's certainly, by statement, having over 40% of the CF community in the United States in one or both of our funds is a pretty profound statement to make, that there is an affordability issue in this space for sure.
And it's, definitely a challenge. Everybody who fundraises knows. I mean, for the Bonnell Foundation, for Healthwell, for all of the other foundations too. So it is definitely an ongoing thing, but the Bonnell Foundation can't do it alone either. And we're glad that Healthwell is out there.
You guys are fabulous, by the way. So, my personal plea is I don't work for you guys, but anybody who's in the space should consider the Bonnell Foundation as well. You guys do fabulous work and a lot of service in this space. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Alan, because we are definitely in this together. So it's really important to support one another. So I thank you for always being like, hey, can we do a podcast real quick? And putting it in your schedule. So thank you very much. I appreciate it. And this is a quick one. Is there anything else that you wanted to add about how the program is going? I mean, I think it's still a little scary for people, but once they get the 12-month grant, they're good, even if something should happen this year?
Yes, absolutely. So once you get a 12-month grant, you are good to go for those 12 months. It is the people that want to re-enroll or newly enroll if the fund is closed. That's where the gating issue is. But once you have a grant, that grant never gets taken away from you, never has, never will. We've awarded over 1.5 million grants in our lifetime, and never once have we taken anything away. We've awarded over $4 billion in grant assistance over the course of our lifetime, never taken a dime away from anybody, and never will, for sure. But it is scary. 2023 was the very first year since this fund has opened that it had closed for one day even, let alone for months. So that is a scary thing. It may be the new normal unless people at the larger donors step up and say, we don't want this fund to close. Let's put our money into it even more.
Well, thank you again, and thanks for your time. I appreciate it. And in our show notes, you can see all the links to Healthwell and check it out there. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Laura.
The original music in this podcast is performed by Kevin Allen.
It's not complicated.
Who happens to have cystic fibrosis.
We all got our worries and fears. I know it's got you frustrated, but loving you is so alright.
This has been the Living with Cystic Fibrosis podcast. For more information and to learn more about the Bonnell Foundation, visit our website at thebonnellfoundation.org. That's the BONNELL Foundation.org. This podcast was sponsored by Vertex Pharmaceutical, The Science of Possibility, and Viatris. It was produced by Jag and Detroit Podcasts. Follow our show in Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you're listening right now.